Welcome, adventurers. Today I did a little light reading. I wanted to learn about the terrain in Stargrave. So a while back I got the book. Finally sat down and started looking through it. And I wanted to make something in the Stargrave universe. Now I haven't fully read the book, but I did read the movement and terrain kind of rules. And I had an idea. Hopefully a good one. So I turned most of this stuff into, well, this stuff. Shallow water terrain. I know, not very original, but I wanted to start somewhere fairly basic. So I took foam core, trimmed it out into some odd shapes, like those, which are going to be kind of, well, the edges, really, of the terrain. So we want to make them recessed, so now I cut out the middle after I cut out the shapes once. I don't go in any particular pattern, I just kind of make something. And in my infinite wisdom and obviously masterful filming qualities, I didn't record the beveling of the edges, but I did that mainly because I wanted it to have a more sloped, organic kind of shape. And I also didn't film me hot gluing it to the medium density fiberboard. So, those are the things you missed. Now as I put compound on here, the modeling compound, I want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe, and of course the Patreon link is in the description. Once it dried, I kind of picked off anything that was loose, flimsy around the edges, and then to protect it, I have Mod Podge mixed with brown paint and a little water. I do that with a lot of my terrain, so that way if anything chips or anything, it's kind of stained with that, but it also makes it a lot more durable. Then I went with this almost muddy brown around all the edges, and then in varying shades of ever darkening paint, from a deep brown to an espresso mixed with gray and also black, I created a kind of color gradient. It doesn't show up well at this stage, but as I was painting it on, I would then go back with water and kind of blend the edges to mix it in, and then touch up here and there with lighter colors to try to show a depth gradient, like that. Now, my spoiled pepperoncinis, or black wash, just to kind of, well, add a little bit of depth and color. Now, I love all the various kinds of basing materials that are out there. This is, I think it's just reindeer moss and some weird blue alien looking flower plant things that I got, I don't know, a long time ago. Watered down Eileen's tacky glue to kind of cement everything, and of course resin for the water. Now you can use all kinds of stuff. You could paint it with clear gloss Mod Podge over and over again to create a depth of color, whatnot. Obviously a little ochre in there to give it that brackish water kind of look. But I went with this because it's durable. And of course, popping the bubbles. I love that part where you can actually see the bubbles go away. Careful, the blue flowers are flammable. I found out on the L-shaped part. Now that it's set up fully, I don't want it to look like crystal clear, flat water. So I'm going to add, well, a bit of surface texture to it. And I'm going to use gloss Mod Podge for that. Pretty basic. Stipple it on. Now while that's drying, I want to make sure I thank my patrons. HM Girl Potpourri, Ryer Tonic, Ian Clark, and Jesper Karkov. And of course, my legendary patron, LAJ. Now take a look at these pictures, and while they're spinning and scrolling, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I learned. So, uneven terrain in Stargrave limits your movement range. I think it's for every 2 inches it becomes 1 inch of movement distance, so it adds a little bit of difficulty in that. And all water is considered to be shallow water unless specifically stated in the special campaign or agreed upon by the players. So I thought that was really interesting. So these can be placed on your game board to give people choices, options. Make them choose to go around or over, depending on where your objective is. I think they turn out really neat. You can do this with all kinds of materials. It doesn't have to be what I used. I've used clear silicone gel to make water before, mixed with a little isopropanol to thin it. Obviously, I've used gloss Mod Podge in several layers to build that up. You want to go slowly with you do that, because if you put it on too thickly, it will crack and look more like broken ice than it does water. Here it is on the actual game board. I think these turned out really well, honestly. Simple. It was only, the longest part was the resin curing for like 12 hours. Well, I certainly hope you've enjoyed what you watched today. Now go have an adventure in crafting.